So good afternoon, good morning for everyone in America. Since we're in the month of preparation before the new year of Rosh Hashanah, every year we devote at least one class to the coming year and the different allusions or the mazim, hints in the Torah to the coming year, and try to explain the significance and what it means for us in our service, what we can prepare ourselves for, how to serve better Hashem and our people in this coming year. We'll begin with some mathematical phenomena, and then we'll move on to discuss a very important soul of one of the great sages of Israel who relates to this coming year, and that we have to learn from him, from his ways. So first, let's contemplate the year itself. The year is 5,778. We're now just at the end of 5777 and about to approach 5778. The first thing that we see in this number, whoever is familiar a little bit with number theory, is that this number is a triangular number. A triangular number means that it is a sum of all numbers from 1 to a certain number. And this number 5778 is the triangle of 107. The sum of all numbers from 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 until 107. Meaning that we have another number which is very significant for this year, 107. So we have to contemplate the full number, the full triangle, which is 5778, and also the base number of the triangle, which is 107. 107 itself is a prime number. Beginning with 1 as the first prime. Some mathematicians like to begin with 2, but originally, and common sense-wise, the first prime is 1. And so that also suggests another function, which is simply to sum all of the primes. What prime number is it? It's the 29th prime from 1. The sum of all the primes from 1 to 107 is 1,372, which is 2 squared times 7 cubed. Also has much significance in Kabbalah. So the first thing that we're seeing is that there's a whole array or set of numbers that pertain to this number of this coming year, 5778. Once more, it's the triangle of 107. 107 equals the first 2 words of the Ten Commandments. Anochi Hashem, I am God. We know that the Ten Commandments repeats itself twice in the Torah, because Moshe Rabbeinu repeats in Mishneh Torah and Deuteronomy. He tells the whole story of the giving the Torah a second time, and the Ten Commandments are quoted a second time. In the Ten Commandments itself, these 2 words, Anochi Hashem, I am God, appear both in the first commandment, the first 2 words of the first commandment, and it also appears in the second commandment. meaning that the two words are actually 4 times in the Ten Commandments. Twice in the first account of the Ten Commandments, which was in Parashat Yitro, and then twice again in the second account of the Ten Commandments, in Parashat Ve'et Hanan. There's only one other time in the whole Torah that these two words appear together, Anochi Hashem, which actually appears before the Ten Commandments, when God appointed Moses to be his shaliach, his messenger, and his emissary to redeem the Jewish people from the exile, the Egyptian exile, and to give the Torah. So Moses was not so happy initially to accept the task, and he argued. Actually, it says that he argued for 7 days with God, not wanting to accept this mission, this very, very difficult mission. He said, if already somebody is going to redeem the Jewish people, let it be the Messiah himself, the Mashiach. Because I know that I'm not going to bring them into Israel and be the final Messiah. In any event, he argued with God. And the end of the argument was that God said, that, do you know who gives sight and hearing and all the other senses to man? And then the conclusion of that verse is, Halo Anochi Hashem. Behold, or yet I am God. So these are the two words which actually are the final appointing of Moses to be the emissary, to redeem us, the Jewish people, and to give us the Torah. That's the first appearance. Then the two words once more, they repeat as the two first words of the Ten Commandments, and actually the one appearance becomes 4. So throughout the whole Torah, these two words, Anochi Hashem, I am God, there are 2 forms of the word I in Hebrew. Ani and Anochi. Ani, the I of Ani is more in a state of sublimation or submission, whereas Anochi is an expression of exaltedness. So there are many times in the Torah, Ani Hashem, I am God, but Anochi Hashem are only in these 5 times, which actually is 2 different contexts. The first is the appointment of Moses, and the second is the Ten Commandments. We won't say all of the different gematриot and allusions in each one of the numbers that we're going to examine. But this number, 107, has another very important gematria to it, which we'll mention. In addition to Anochi Hashem, it equals Magen David, the shield of David. Magen David is a phrase that we say in our prayers in the after the Haftarah on Shabbat in the morning. One of the blessings concludes, Baruch Atah Hashem, blessed be you Hashem, Magen David, the shield. You Hashem God, you God are the shield of David. Now we know that Magen David is a symbol which should not be taken as the symbol of the Jewish people, but nonetheless it is a very, very accepted and common symbol. And it has much, much significance to it. And we're not going to devote this class to the significance of the Magen David, but we can say that since this coming year has to do with this number, which equals Magen David, from just equating these 2 gematria that we said, there must be something in the Magen David itself that is saying to us, Anochi Hashem, I am God. try to see that Anochi Hashem, that I am God, coming out and shining out of this form, this very unique and symmetric, geometric form, which is the Magen David. So it means it's a year of contemplation, just like we heard before about the 6 continual mitzvot of the Torah and living in divine space. So a Magen David is also 6, the 6-cornered star. And those 6 corners exactly correspond to these 6 continual mitzvot in this book. So this coming year is a year of contemplation and identification. Every Jew should identify with the Magen David and also the Pshat. What is the Pshat? It's the literal meaning of the Magen David, that Hashem is, God is the shield of David. David is the kingdom of Israel, King David. That we're waiting for King David to reappear as the King Messiah. So God is his shield. He protects him, his protection. But the concept of shield in the Torah is called a surrounding light. There is an inner light and a surrounding light. And God is the surrounding light of the kingdom of Israel that we're praying for on Rosh Hashanah. The most important thing we pray is for God to be recognized universally as King, and that also there should be a living, blood and flesh King of the Jewish people and the whole world. And that is the Messiah. Right, so that was all about 107. Let's say something more. If this year is the triangle of 107, this coming year, so all of the triangular numbers are a series. It means that this year is actually the next one in the series after the triangle of 106, which comes after the triangle of 105. I mean, there's something we just heard about memory. What year should we try to remember this coming year, or this coming Rosh Hashanah? 5778. So we should try to remember what happened in 5671, which is 107 years ago. Because 5671 is the triangle of 106. Then we should, if our memory is even stronger than remembering what happened 107 years ago, we should try to remember what happened in the year 5000. Taf Kuf Samech Hei. 5,565. Now, since I don't think anybody is that old here to remember what happened 107 years ago, and certainly 213 years ago, how is the best way to remember? To remember the last triangular number, the previous triangular number, and then the previous one before that. The best way to remember is through the Torah. And every year a new Torah is revealed. To remember the past is actually to remember the Chidushei Torah, the innovations of Torah that Hashem revealed through the tzaddikim in that particular time, because it pertains to me, it relates to me. Meaning that this year, this coming year, 5778, is a good year to study the Hemshech Taf Reish Ayin Aleph of the Rebbe Rashab, the Torah that was revealed in year 5671, which is the triangle of 106, the previous triangle. And if you want to go back one more triangle, so you go back to triangle of 105 and you learn the 2 great volumes of the Alter Rebbe, the Balatanya, the Chassidus that he taught in the year Tav Kuf Samechei, which is 5,565. So especially people that are close to Chabad, each of these 2 years have a whole tremendous learning to them. If you really want to be good at doing this, so you can travel to Haditch this coming year, where the Alter Rebbe is buried, and there learn these 2 volumes of the Chassidus that he said 2 triangles ago. And if you want more, or actually first, you can travel to Rostov, where the Rebbe Rashab is, and learn his Chassidus that he said in the previous triangle. So it means memory is also has to do with geometry. This is a geometric form. It's called a figurate number. It's a number that has a symmetric geometric form to it. The basic geometric forms are the triangle, the square, and there's another form which is called the inspirational number or interface number. Now we'll go one step further. Since we're trying to remember things, maybe somebody here can even remember what we talked about or what we mentioned 2 years ago at the beginning of 5776. So I don't see anybody jumping out of his chair right now. But 2 years ago, 5776, we explained that number is special because it's also a figurate number. It's a square, it's a perfect square. It's 76 squared. But the distances between these figurate numbers is great. So what do we have here? We have a mathematical phenomenon that we have to try to understand. Whoever gets this and is able to solve the problem that I'm now going to explain gets, within 24 hours, gets 3 books free from Hananiah. Whatever you choose, whatever we have in stock. The question is, how often, and is there a formula, or it's called an algorithm, to know when n squared plus 2 will be equal to the triangle of m? Once more, we have here a phenomenon 2 years ago and this coming year. Now we're in the middle. 5776 was 76 squared. And now we're entering 5778, which is 107 triangle. When was the last time that this phenomenon appeared? You have to remember, you have to go back very far in history and remember the time that Joseph was in prison, that his grandfather Isaac was 173 years old. His father Jacob was 113 years old. It was the year 2211. Before, we just had the triangle, and then we said to remember the last triangle is to go back in time 107 years. Said nobody here is 107 years old, but it's still we have some rapport with 107 years ago. But now we have to go back in time, far, far distance in time, the last time this phenomena appeared. 2209 is 47 squared. But 2211 is 66 triangle. So it's exactly the same phenomenon, that it's a square of a number, and then you add 2, and you get a triangle. From that time, 2211 until this coming year, 5,778, there is no such phenomenon. What was the time, the pair before? The pair before was to go back to Adam. Not in the Garden of Eden afterwards. But all the previous times are in his lifetime. "13 squared is 169. Add 2, it's 171. 18 triangle. Go back, 8 squared is 64. Add 2, 66 is 11 triangle. Go back, 2 squared is 4. Add 2 equals 6, which is 3 triangle. Go back, 1 squared is 1. Add 2, 3. 3 is 2 triangle. Meaning that this coming year is the 6th time that this phenomena appears in numbers. In order to reach the 7th time, we have to have long life we have to live approximately another 70,000 years. I'm not going to say exactly how much, because that's already a hint at how to calculate the algorithm. This phenomena is called a recursive function. That's the hint. Whoever can tell me from now, 24 hours from now, the rule, how to calculate the next pair and the next pair until infinity, so he gets for 3, believe that, or 3 books to his desire. So I hope that out there, both here in this room and out there are people that like numbers, and that will try to figure out the rule, the recursive algorithm of how to calculate all of these pairs. But once more, to reach the next pair, we have to live about another 70,000 years. Bezrat Hashem. And of course the next one is much more than that. So the first thing that this means is that this is a good year to learn number theory, this coming year. Especially recursive functions. This is a classic example of what is called a number theory, a recursive function. So that's a goal for this coming year, whoever likes math. Right, so this was part 1 this evening, or this afternoon, or this morning. Part 2 is now just relating to what's called the small number of the year. The small number of the year is, according to Jewish tradition, usually when you write the number of the year, you leave out the thousands and just relate to the hundreds and on. So this coming year will be Tav Shin Ayin Chet. 778. Tav Shin Ayin Chet. This, of course, is a much smaller number, so there are many more things that we can say about this number, 778, but we'll just say three things. Two Gematриot to have in mind, and it equals the name of a very great soul, of one of the greatest sages in Jewish history. And that's what we're going to emphasize, and to talk about him, and also to create, as we always try to do, to create a parzuf of the different things that we can learn from him and try to achieve in this coming year. The first gematria of Tav Shin Ayin Chet is a very messianic gematria, because it's the two words which were the sisma, the symbol of the redemption from the exile, the Egyptian exile, which are pakod, pakadati. Before we talked about Moses being appointed as the Redeemer. So the two words that he said, that the sages, and actually it was a woman, Serach Bat Asher, that informed the sages that she heard from Jacob that these two words are the sign of the redemption. Pakod pakadati. The time has come to redeem the Jewish people. Those two words equal 778, Tav Shin Ayin Chet. So there's a very, very beautiful and significant allusion that this year has the potential to be the year of Pakod Pakadati, the year of redemption. The second gematria, we're saying from a whole array of many, many phrases in the Torah that equals this number. I'm just picking one more. Can teach us what we can do in order to bring about the arousal from above to redeem us. To redeem us has to come from above. But we have to try to do something from below. It's called itaruta delatatu, to arouse ourselves from below, in order that God arouses himself and brings the light of the Mashiach and the redemption to the world. One of the most important verses in the Torah, in the whole Tanakh, of how we are told to serve God, is three stages. Stage number is called Sur Mira, go away from evil. Leave evil. Asay Tov, do good. And the third is Bakesh Shalom, search and request peace. And it says that these three are from below above, meaning that the lowest level is to leave evil. Obviously, this has to do with our tshuva, our returning to Hashem in this month, before Rosh Hashanah. To leave, if a person has any evil ways, the first thing is called azivat achet, to leave. But then, after that, that's just an introduction. What Hashem really wants from us is to do good. That's stage number 2. Just so long as a person is involved or sunk into the evil, he can't do good. So you have to leave evil in order to be able to do good, to do maximal good. But there's something even more than that, than doing good, which is Bakesh Shalom, search for peace, make peace. Doing good as you are doing good. Making peace is making peace in the world. Making peace is bringing souls together. Especially antagonistic souls, or even souls that were previously enemies, to make peace. And to make peace, a person has to search for peace, bakesh shalom, and the next word is v'rotzeh, has to pursue peace. So that phrase, which once more, that's the ultimate service of Hashem, even more than going away from evil, and even more than doing good. Bakesh shalom, search for peace, those two words equal 778 this year. So the illusion is that this is our service. The service of this year, coming year, is Bakesh Shalom, to search for peace. And thereby, from that arousal of ourselves from below, we will merit to Hashem saying the word, Pakot Pakarati. The time has come, and now this is the year of redemption. So now we're going to say, who is the soul, the sage, that his name equals exactly this number, 778. And since it equals this phrase, Bakesh Shalom, search for peace, so it should be a soul that we can immediately identify that one of his attributes, one of his most important attributes, is that he was for peace. Nowadays, a person that's for peace is called a pacifist. We know that of the great sages of Israel in the time of the Roman Empire, so there were great sages that were pacifists, and there were other great sages that were militants. Who is the greatest militant of the sages? Rabbi Akiva. He was the one that supported the rebellion of Bar Kokhba, Bar Kuziva. But the amazing thing is, who was his Rebbe? The Rebbe of Rabbi Akiva was Rabbi Yoshua ben Hananiah, and he was a pacifist. So it's an amazing thing that a Rebbe who was a pacifist had his greatest disciple was a militant. Rabbi Akiva's Rebbe, Rabbi Yoshua ben Hananiah, who is Stam Rabbi Yoshua throughout the Mishnah and the Gemara, when you just see the name Rabbi Yoshua, that is Rabbi Yoshua ben Hananiah, and his name equals 778. So this is the sage to identify with in this coming year, and since his name, Rabbi Yoshua ben Hananiah, equals exactly this phrase, Bakesh Shalom, which we said is the way that we are to arouse the pronouncement of Pakot Pakarati, of the redemption. So we have to try to learn everything we can about Rabbi Yoshua ben Hananiah this coming year, beginning from right now, in preparation for the coming year. Rabbi Yoshua ben Hananiah was once more just Rabbi Yoshua Stam, is the greatest sage that the halacha is in accordance with his opinion in what's called the second generation of the Tanaim. At first there were many generations of what's called zugot, of pairs, and the last pair was Hillel and Shammai. And then the next generation, which is called the first generation of the Tanaim, the greatest sage is Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. He was the sage that when the second temple was destroyed, he asked the emperor to give him Yavne v'Chachamea, the city of Yavne and Chachamea. He was also a pacifist. He wasn't into what was a great factor within the Jewish people to rebel and to fight against the Romans. And he saw that at that time it was a lost cause. And we have to accept the decree of heaven, and we have to do the best with what we have, with what God will give us. His Talmid, Rabbi Yoshua, that's the one of this coming year, so he inherited, actually, he even helped, together with his best friend, who was also the sage that argued with him, who was called Rabbi Eliezer ben Hurkanus. They helped actually save Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai from the hands of the militant Jews and take him out of the city of Jerusalem to the camp, to the Roman camp. And there he spoke with the ruler there, and he received the city of Yavne and Chachamea. So Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai is called the first generation. Rabbi Yoshua is the second generation. Rabbi Akiva is already the third generation of the Tanaim. After the end of the Zugot, the pairs, which ended with Hillel and Shammai. Rabbi Yoshua ben Hananiah was called Chakima Yudai, the wise one, or the wise man of the Jews. And that Torah, that name that he was given, was because of his great wisdom and ability to argue with either the Romans and the Roman Empire, the Roman Emperor, and with the whole long discourse in the Talmud, which has many very deep commentaries on. It's called Savi de Vechuna, the elders of Athens, which were the wise men of Athens. That he argued, they shot back and forth the riddles to one another, who can solve the riddle. And he won against all of the elders of Athens. And he actually presented himself. He said that I am the wise man of the Jewish people. So we see that obviously this is what we're going to now identify with his wisdom, his level of wisdom. We're now going in short, go through the different sfirot, what we can learn from him for this coming year. In his time, more than any other sage, he was involved with discourse, either debate or just philosophic discourse with the philosophers of his time. There were even some philosophers that he liked, that he was very friendly with. Some he had to debate against, and some he befriended. But he was known as the wisest of all souls. By Hashgacha Pratis, we'll mention, by divine providence today, the 12th of Elul is the Yortzeit, the Hilula. of one of the great Hasidic sages, the Rabbi Rebunim, Reb Simcha Bunim Pacifism, that he was also, this appellation applies to him, Hakim ad Yehudai, the wise man of the Jewish people, that also debated with the philosophers of his time. There are many, his name appears hundreds of times throughout the Talmud, and there are tens and tens of stories about Rabbi Yoshua. One of them is that one time he was on a ship together with Rabban Gamliel, who was the prince of the generation. He was a descendant of Hillel. The descendants of Hillel were the princes of the generation, the Nasi. And one time he was on a ship together with him, and the ship was supposed to take the journey. Was supposed to spend so much time, so many weeks on the sea, probably from Israel to Italy. And each person each passenger had to bring with him his own food. So Rabban Gamliel brought that amount of food that was necessary for this time that the ship was to take from Israel to Rome. But Rabbi Yoshua, who traveled together with him, he took a double or triple portion of food. In the middle of the voyage, so something went off with the sailors, that they lost track of the route, and the journey took twice or three times more than it was supposed to take, during which time Rabban Gamliel was out of food, and Rabbi Yoshua still had the food because he had prepared in advance. So Rabban Gamliel said, how did you know that? He said, I know because there's a star that appears once every 70 years, and this star makes the sailors, mistakes the sailors, sends the sailors off track, off route. And I knew that this star is about to appear, so that's why I knew that this voyage was going to take a lot more time than it was planned. Rabbi Yeshua was very poor. Rabban Gamliel was the prince of the generation. He was very rich. He turned to him and said, you have such great wisdom in secular wisdom, in science. With all of your wisdom, why are you poor? But you can't make money. That wisdom is actually coming from the wisdom of the crown, of the supernal crown. It's called Chokhmah Stima, the concealed wisdom. That wisdom to know that there's going to be this wisdom which borders on Ruach, on the Holy Spirit, and on the prophecy. That he knew that once in every 70 years the star is going to appear, and on this voyage it's going to make the sailors mistake off route. The fact that he was able to argue and to win it says there were only 3 people in his lifetime that won against him. A woman, a young child, a young boy, and a young girl. Except for those 3, for the 2 kids and the woman, nobody ever beat him in any argument that he had throughout his life. So he's very, very wise. His mentor, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, said about him that he's the Chut HaMeshulash. He's a triple thread or string. He himself is a triple thread. Why did he call him the triple thread? Because he has Torah and Yir'ah and Chokhmah. He's both great. He's the greatest in Torah, and he's the greatest in Yir'ah and awe and fear of Hashem. And he's also the greatest in wisdom, meaning here secular wisdom. So if we're trying to emulate this coming year Rabbi Yoshua, this is the perfect formula for every student in any school, in any Jewish school, that the Chut HaMeshulash, the triple thread, is Torah, Yir'ah, and Chokhmah. Just to see that those three concepts go together, if we add them together, Torah is 611, and Yir'ah is 216, and Chokhmah is 73, if you add them together, you'll see it comes out to be exactly 900, which is a perfect square. It's 30 squared. It's called the secret of the Jewish heart. Two lameds facing one another in love. 30 times 30. So that's called the triple thread, Torah and Yir'ah and Chokhmah. And all of those three properties were present in this person of Rabbi Yoshua ben Hananiah. Apparently more so than any other person. Because no other sage is called the Chut HaMeshulash himself. One special thing the Gemara says about him, the Talmud relates about him in Masechet Chagigah, is that he was outstanding more than any other sage in the deepest mysteries of the Torah, which is called Maaseh Merkavah, the working of the divine chariot. You know that there are two dimensions of mysteries in the Torah, the workings of creation and the workings of the divine chariot. And the greatest sage in the Maaseh Merkavah was Rabbi Yoshua ben Hananiah. And one time the Talmud relates the story that one time he took a walk with one of his friends, Rabbi Yossi HaKohen, both of them disciples of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. And when they were out in nature someplace, in the woods, so he started teaching the secrets of the workings of the chariot, of the divine chariot, and it took place in the middle of the month of Tammuz, which is the middle of the summer, which is very hot, as we know, and there's no rain in the summer in Israel. There's no rain here, and he continued to teach the workings of the chariot, and the heavens became cloudy, just like in the winter before our rain. But there was no rain. But what did appeared a most beautiful and tremendous rainbow in the heavens. And all of the people in Israel saw this rainbow in the heavens. The rainbow in the heavens, the Keshet, Ba'anan, is a symbol of the divine presence. When Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, his mentor, heard and knew that this was because of his student Rabbi Yoshua ben Hananiah, so he said, Ashreichem, happy are you, Ashrei Yoladetchem, happy is the one that gave birth to you, meaning your mother, as we'll now explain. And happy are the eyes, or my eyes, that I saw this. That's the Rabbi said about his student. So now we'll go on to the next thing. That this is all of the wisdom, the special wisdom that he had, has to do with the sphere of, it corresponds to the sphere of wisdom in his soul. And also we said that it's the wisdom of the crown itself, the concealed wisdom. Just yesterday we read the second chapter of Pirkei Avot, of the ethics of the fathers, and there we have the whole story. It's all told. The Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai had 5 disciples. The first one, it says, is Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkos, and the second is Rabbi Yeshua ben Hananiah, who we're now talking about. Then it goes on to say that each one of his 5 disciples, he praised him. The Rabbi, Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai, praised him with a certain praise. About the first one, Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkos said he's like a pitcher or a vessel that doesn't lose a drop, one drop of the Torah that he learns. About Rabbi Yoshua, he praised him, happy is the one that gave birth to you. Ashrei Yoladeto, who was the one that gave birth? His mother. So that seems very strange to praise one by how happy is your mother. So there's something we have to learn from this phrase, because this is his essence. As according to his mentor, his essence is how happy is your mother. Why? Because the sages say that when his mother, Rabbi Yeshua ben Hananiah, was pregnant with him, she went to 24 different Batei Midrash, 24 different yeshivas, and she asked the Talmidei Chachamim, the sages, in each one of the yeshivot, to pray hard that the son in her womb should be a Talmid Chacham, should be a wise sage. And this is something for women to know, to try to emulate. When you talk about this coming year is the year of Rabbi Yoshua ben Hananiah, and according to Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai, his mentor, his Rabbi, so the first thing about him is the schut, the merit of his mother. That this is a year that each woman can merit, if she devotes herself properly, should merit to have such a son. What did she do? Once more, she went, when she was pregnant with him, she went to 24 different yeshivas and asked them to pray that her son should be a great sage. But that wasn't enough. After he was born, in his crib, every day in the crib, she took him to the yeshiva, kidei shidapku oznav b'divrei Torah, that his ears should cling to the words of Torah. So from the moment that he was born, before he was born, she had everybody pray for him. And after he was born, she took him to that he should hear words of Torah from the very beginning. We know that a father has to teach his son, the first words that he teaches him to speak should be words from Torah, Torah tziva lanu Moshe, and so forth. Psukim, verses from the Torah. But this is before he can speak. This is a classic example that the task of the mother comes before the father. The Rebbe always explains that the foundation of chinuch, of education, is the mother. And the example is this example of Rabbi Yoshua ben Hananiah, that even before the father can teach him the first verse in the Torah, his ears become full of the vibes, of the vibration of the Torah. You might think that it was just what's called as we said before, a surrounding light around him that he heard, that his ears became connected to the Torah. But there's even more than that. Every different sage in the Talmud, there are certain idioms that that when he says relates one of a law of the Torah, some halakha. So there are different idioms that are used. One idiom that appears exclusively about Rabbi Yoshua ben Hananiah is that he says shamati. The whole list, tens of times in the Talmud, that Rabbi Yoshua says shamati. Shamati means that I heard that this is the law. And he doesn't explain it. He just said shamati. What is the explanation? So the explanation is, when did he hear? He heard when he was an infant, when his mother took him to the yeshiva, to the Beis Medrash. He couldn't respond, but this is what I heard. And tens of times throughout the Talmud, he just says shamati, shamati kach, I heard so and so. The special relation of him to his mother, and his mother to him, and the expression of what he learned is called shamati. This is all in Kabbalah. This is binah. This is his understanding. The mother that knows how important and essential it is for herself to devote herself to her fetus even, and certainly to her infant, is called binah yetirah, the additional measure of understanding that a woman has more than a man. Or the husband would never tell his wife to do that. Why wouldn't the husband ever tell his wife? Because he versteht nicht. He doesn't understand in such things. But she understands. That's called that she has an additional measure of understanding. She understands how essential and important it is for to pray when she's pregnant, and to have the ears of her baby absorb the vibrations of the Torah, to the extent that afterwards he says throughout his life shamati. In Pirkei Avot that we studied yesterday, each one of these 5 disciples of Rabban Yochanan says what is the way to serve God. Because Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai asked him, what is the way, the good way that a person should cling to? So the first disciple, Rabbi Eliezer ben Hurkanus, says Ayin Tova. The good way, it all depends upon having a good eye to look at another person with a good eye, not with a bad eye. But then it comes to the second, to our sage, which is Rabbi Yoshua ben Hananiah. And he says that the good way is chaver tov. The most important thing is to have a good friend. So this is very, very important. The next one was Rabbi Yossi HaKohen, the two that went together when he revealed the workings of the chariot. That's him and the next one, the third one, Rabbi Yossi HaKohen. And the third one says that the good way is to have a good neighbor, shachen tov. But this coming year is the year of Rabbi Yoshua, and Rabbi Yoshua says that the good way is to have a good friend. In Tanya it says that friendship and bond. What is the classic example of two good friends in the Tanakh? Also appears later on in Pirkei Avot. It's David and Jonathan that had a bond, that hiskashus, a bond of two souls together. And friendship, hischaprus, those are the properties, the attributes of da'at, which is the next shira. So we have already a very, very straightforward, simple teaching for this coming year of friendship. Just like we said that he is for peace. Bakeh Shalom. The very first thing, also in education, is to make sure, just like you make sure that your child hears words of Torah from the very first moment that he can hear, make sure that he has a good friend. Rabbi Yeshua himself had a good friend. It was actually the one that they rivaled over the Torah with, the first one, Rabbi Eliezer. So for this coming year, a year of friendship. Make sure that you have good friends. This goes for kids and it goes for adults also. Now we turn to his chesed. The chesed of Rabbi Yeshua is that he belongs to Bet Hillel. And all of his decisions, his halakhic decisions, are lahakel. He's lenient. In all of his decisions, he's lenient, just like Bet Hillel. This is one thing that identifies him with chesed. Always searching for peace is also obviously has to do with chesed. He himself was a Levi. The one after him, Rabbi Yossi HaKohen, is a Kohen. And he's a Levi, Rabbi Yeshua. The first one, Rabbi Eliezer, is Yisrael. So actually the first three disciples are Yisrael, Levi, Kohen of Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai. He was in the time of the temple, before the destruction of the second temple. As a Levi, there were two functions that the Levim performed in the temple service. One was to sing, and the other was to open and close the doors. The Mishorarim and the Shoarim. And there were special families of special Levites that were just, if you're a singer, you're not allowed to touch the doors, to be involved with the opening and the closing of the doors. If you're a doorman, you're not allowed to sing. So he actually had another friend. He had a good friend. His other friend was a Levite who was a doorman. And once he wanted to help him, he said, "No, you can't help me because you're a singer." Moshe Rabbeinu Moses was a Levite, and it says he was a singer in the temple, Moses. He was the ultimate musician, Moses. In his generation, it says that when he was a child, in addition to learning Torah, he studied music. So this is another very simple, straightforward thing we can learn about Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, that part of his education was to study music, and he became a very, very great musician, and was a singer in the temple. So that's something to do this coming year. We said before that he was poor. What was occupation? He sold coals, pachami. Coals are black. Coals are hot. By selling coals, his face became black. Meaning that he wasn't so good looking because he was poor. So the sages said about him, and also even the princess, the Roman princess said about him, that he is chokhmah mefo'ara bikli mecho'ar. He's the most beautiful wisdom in an ugly vessel. Mashiach should be handsome. David was handsome. Joseph was handsome. Yaakov was handsome. But here we have the greatest sage of his time, and he's beautiful wisdom in an ugly vessel. So this obviously has to do with the fact, and this is the way it's explained, that he was a transition stage and he experienced the destruction of the temple. He took all of the wisdom, the beauty of the wisdom of the Torah, but now the Jewish people, the fact that he was in an ugly vessel, in a certain way reflects the state of the Jewish people in exile after the destruction of the Second Temple. And actually the reason for the destruction of the Second Temple, because we weren't as we should be. This is sometimes to be beautiful is to be inwardly beautiful, even though outwardly it appears to be ugly. His beauty, this is the next Sefirah, Tiferet, his beauty is the most beautiful wisdom in a not so coming or lovely physical appearance. There's also a teaching that this coming year is not to emphasize the physical vessel, but to emphasize the inward beauty. That's what we learn from him. The most famous debate between him and his friend, Rabbi Eliezer ben Hurknus, was a certain debate about a law that Rabbi Eliezer was so strong in his opinion that he actually asked Hashem to show signs and wonders and miracles. And Hashem did it. And a bat kol went out from heaven, a voice from heaven, to support the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Yeshua said that the Torah is not in heaven. With all of those miracles, I do not accept your opinion. And the opinion, the law has to be decided by the majority of the sages. And that's what happened at the end. That is called nitzchuni. This is the way he won. He always won, except for those three people that beat him. He always won. And this is the most classic winning of a battle with his best friend. Is the Torah in heaven or is the Torah down on earth? So he was the one. This is the way that it's decided, the law, that the Torah is handed over to the majority of the sages, the mentality of the sages on earth. At the same time, once there was a quarrel between himself and Rabban Gamliel, the prince, of when Rosh Hashanah falls on what date. But then the month was sanctified by witnesses that saw the new month. And Rabbi Yeshua knew in his wisdom that the two witnesses were liars, were Eidei Sheker. So he said to Rabban Gamliel, you can't accept these witnesses, but Rabban Gamliel, according to the law, he accepted them, because the way that they express themselves, there was no way to know that they're lying. So Rabban Gamliel pronounced that you have to come on Yom Kippur, on your Yom Kippur, you have to come to my Yom Kippur in weekly clothing and so forth, in order to desecrate your Yom Kippur in order to accept the opinion of the majority. That's the way that he argued against Rabbi Eliezer. Now the same thing happened to him himself. And it was very difficult for him because he knew they were liars. But Rabbi Akiva, his own Talmud, said that he brought a verse from the Torah that what the Beit Din pronounces, that's what goes. Even if it's based on false testimony. If the majority pronounces. So he actually did, this is his acknowledgement, his hold. He did what he was told. And he came with submission to Rabban Gamliel. That's to learn from him submission to his friend, Rabbi Eliezer, didn't have submission to the majority. And that's why he's actually was put into cherem. Since the time is now short, we'll just say that the Yesod, his foundation, has to do with a special argument with the Caesar of Rome, the pregnancy of snakes. That he says it's 7 years, and the wise men of Athens say that it's just 3 years. And he explained that the snake that they had in their laboratory had already been pregnant for 4 years. So that's why they thought it was 3 years. But this will now not go into this in detail, because the last one I do want to say, and I take a few minutes. The last one is pacifism, because Malchut. His political, the last Sfiras is politics, is Malchut. And his political position was to make peace even with the enemy, with the Romans, not to rebel against the Romans. He passed away just a year or two before the rebellion of Bar Kokhba, which was supported by his greatest disciples, we said in the beginning, by Rabbi Akiva, who was militant. All of the scholars say that had he lived another few years, very likely he would have been able to prevent the rebellion of Bar Kokhba, and then the whole history of the Jewish people would be different. The whole history of the Roman Empire accepting a so-called monotheistic religion would have been different. Very likely, the Roman Empire would have ultimately accepted the Jewish religion had Rabbi Yoshua been able to continue his line, and this obviously is what he had in thought. According to the Arizal, Rabbi Yoshua is the reincarnation of Yoshua Kohen Gadol in the beginning of the Second Temple, who himself comes from Yoshua bin Nun, and we know that in the generation when he was just a young boy was a story about another Yoshua, and he is explained to be a rectification. One of the things about him that resembles Hillel is that he was very pro-conversion, not like other sages. Once more, Rabbi Yoshua ben Hananiah was pro-conversion. The most important thing about non-Jews that we find, that we've explained at length in the book Meditation and Kabbalah for the Nations, is that Chasidei umot ha'olam yesh lehem chelek le'olam haba. That the good amongst the nations, the righteous Gentiles, all have a portion of the world to come. Who said that? It's the most important saying of the sages of the whole Torah Shebaal Peh, the oral Torah in relation to non-Jews. Who said that? You can guess that the one who said that was Rabbi Yoshua ben Hananiah. This was his agenda, but it didn't happen. So again, these are mysterious things. If one asks who is the greatest of all the sages of the oral Torah, So probably the answer would be Rabbi Akiva. But we say that from generation to generation, his mentor had a different political attitude altogether. The opposite. Another thing about Chesed, this is the last point we'll make, that he said that the world was created in Nisan, and he's not like Rabbi Eliezer, friend, and that the redemption will come in Nisan. And Rabbi Eliezer said that the world was created in Tishrei, and the redemption will also be in Tishrei. What is Nisan? Nisan is Chesed. What is the controversy between the two? That Rabbi Eliezer says that if the Jewish people does not do tshuva, Mashiach will not come. And our Rabbi Yoshua of this coming year says that even if we don't do tshuva, the Mashiach will come. Total lenience, total chesed. Even without tshuva, Mashiach will come. Not like his friend. And that's why it will be Nisan, because Nisan is a month of just a revelation from above. And once more, his attitude towards Goyim was that there are many, many righteous of the Goyim, and that all of Goyim should become righteous, and they all have a portion of the world to come. And if you want to convert, he was very, very lenient about helping non-Jews convert to Judaism. Once more, the ultimate thought was that he knew that the Roman Empire, all of the non-Jewish world, was on the verge of a change, a mental change, and all of those debates that he had with heretics were against the beginning of this religion that came from the previous Yehoshua, and he wanted to make the weight of the scales of the non-Jewish world weigh on Judaism, come to Judaism. And so this is our Rabbi Yoshua ben Hananiah, who equals 778. So we shall all have a good and sweet year.
Amen. Thank you, Rabbi Ginsburg. Before I make a few announcements, and we have our usual question and answer period, when the Rav was talking about this series of numbers, we went all the way back to Adam. And I was reminded of what I learned from the Rav, is that when a new student would come to the Baal Shem Tov, he would say, "What's the first thing you remember?" And from that, Rabbi Nachman took this idea, and in the story of the seven beggars, came up with this incredible story of people remembering pre-creation, pre-birth, way, way, way back. So I don't know how far back the algorithm goes, but there's a level where it goes before number one.
Right, it goes back to minus numbers also.
Yeah. Okay, announcements. The next shiur is the first Sunday of October, which is October 1st, Yud Aleph Tishrei, the day after Yom Kippur. And even though people might be a little busy getting ready for Sukkot, I am sure some beautiful Torah will help us make our sukkahs even more beautiful. So everyone is invited to come. It will be back in Netzach Yisrael, our usual place, 6:30. Second of all, the book of the month, as we said before, is Living in Divine Space. I'm not going to explain again the whole book and why it's chosen for this month, but it's very, very connected to the month of Elul. And the Rav added very beautifully that we didn't plan it this way, but the fact that this whole book is based on creating a cube around ourselves based on 6 mitzvot fits in perfectly with the Magen David. And as we learn tonight, 5778 is the triangle of 107, which is the Magen David. So this book is actually perfect for this year, more than we actually realized when it was chosen. The last announcement is that a new book is about to be published called The Twinkle in Your Eye, about memory, aging, long life. It's very, very applicable to Rosh Hashanah, Yom HaZikaron, and Galei Nai is in need of dedications to help this book come out. So for everyone who is listening and has the ability, we need whole page dedications, $2,000 or more. Half a page is $1,000, and a quarter page is $500. And it's a beautiful and very treasured way to remember someone by dedicating a book that will be read by thousands of people. So hopefully many people out there can respond to this. Okay, now we do the questions. Okay, we're going to start with questions here. Usually we start from people who are watching, but we're going to start from here. Are there any questions on either side? Yes.
Rabbi spoke about this dichotomy amongst the sages between pacifism and militants. We see that even today that's an issue, but throughout Jewish history we see that, for example, the Maccabees are venerated as great people, but people in the rebellion that were given up to the Zakai are frowned upon and not held in great regard. So how do we as simple Jews know which side to go with when there's rabbinic opinions spanning the entire gamut? So how do we as people decide, should we go to Rabbi Akiva, should we go to Rabbi Hananiah? What do we do as regular people?
Okay, I always repeat the question, so especially for people who are watching might not have heard it. This is truly an awesome question, I have to say. Rav Ginsburg was explaining the difference between Rabbi Akiva, who in the Rav's words called him a militant, and his teacher, who was Rabbi Yeshua, he called him a pacifist. And if Rabbi Yeshua would have lived longer, he might have prevented the whole Bar Kokhba rebellion. So the question is, even today, there are people who have different sides of the political spectrum. How does us simple Jews know what is the right message for our time today?
Okay, so it's the best question. It was the question that I wanted to be asked to this question. And the answer to the question is that we have to have a Rabbi. That if we don't have a Rabbi, we'll never know who to follow. Because in the time of Rabbi Yeshua, he was the Rabbi. In the time of Rabbi Akiva, he was the Rabbi. But now we do have a Rabbi. We still have a Rabbi, which is the politically wise. The Rabbi that we have is the Lubavitcher Rabbi, who's maybe not physically with us, but spiritually he is with us. And he is still telling us, he's telling, first of all, that it's not the same situation as was then. Then there was a fate that was unavoidable. Now the Rabbi says that it's the direction of history is just the opposite. We're now approaching the redemption. Doesn't mean that he was militant. He was also for peace, but he said that the peace comes with standing strong on Shleimut Eretz Yisrael, that the whole of Eretz Yisrael belongs to the Jewish people exclusively, and that the only way to relate to the Arabs is with a little bit of a strength, or maybe a lot of strength. Otherwise, they're not going to. Otherwise, they will never make peace. So we have our teacher, we have our mentor, and we have to follow. That's the only thing we have. We're all simple Jews, and we have to follow the directives of our teacher.
Any other questions from the Kahal here? Yes. Okay, the question is, we'll call it bottom line, what is the main teaching that everyone could take away from the learning tonight?
The main teaching is you have to have a good friend. That was what he said. It should be a year of friendship, of finding a good friend, having a good friend. It says, "Ha'isha tova ha'chavera tova." If you're not married yet, your best friend is your wife to be. If you are married, you have to remember that your best friend is your wife. "Ha'isha tova ha'chavera tov." That's the saying. So beginning with the spouses, that's the beginning of friendship, and it has to spread to good friends like David and Jonathan. That's the vision. But there are many others. I didn't want to just limit it to one thing. There's a famous expression that sometimes when you say a class, it's like called a kovai. You're making hats. You have a whole array, assemble of hats, and everybody takes the hat that fits him. So that's why there were a lot of ideas of how a mother has to raise her children. All kinds of different things that each point is very relevant and pertinent, and we have to try to learn from the different attributes. That's why we made this whole parzuf, to learn from all the different attributes of Rabbi Yeshua ben Hananiah. That was our last thing. But since he himself said that the most was a good friend, so that's the most important thing.
Okay. With the Rav's permission, you reminded me something. One time, someone asked a similar kind of question of Reb Shlomo about the prayers of Rosh Hashanah. And he asked him, after all of the davening of Rosh Hashanah, which is substantial, bottom line, what are we supposed to get out of it? So, I'll never forget, Reb Shlomo said, bottom line is, if a person can open up their heart and say, Rabbona Sha'olam, I want to be so close to you. Rabbona Sha'olam, please help me be so close to you. He said, if you can get to that level, everything else will follow. Question? Okay, the question is, in the class, the Rav mentioned that Rabbi Yeshua was a great chacham, and in his whole life, only 3 people outsmarted him or bested him. One was a woman, one was a child, and one was a young girl. So many people don't know, so maybe the Rav could tell us quickly
I'll just say
the stories.
B'li neder, I hope that all of this will be when you get the final version of the class, so it'll all be there. But one thing that we can learn from is from the woman that she taught him. The bottom line, this will just say one thing. A woman taught him that whenever you eat, you should leave a little bit. Not eat the whole plate. That's what he learned from the woman.
Okay.
It had a lot of significance to it.
The next book from Rav Ginsburg is Diet and Kabbalah. Any other questions? From one second, the last story you didn't complete. I'm trying to...
Right. That story never ended.
Okay, so the question is, because I mentioned the 7 beggars, so the question for the Rav is, how could or would the last story of Rabbi Nachman potentially end? If I got that right.
We're working at it. The last beggar is the one without feet. The secret is that it represents Shimshon, the tikkun of Shimshon HaGibor. That was lame. He was the greatest hero and strong man, but he couldn't walk. He's called the beggar without feet. He's called the Mashiach of Tohu, of the world of Tohu. So, as the Rabbi said, the formula to bring Mashiach is lights of Tohu in vessels of Tikkun. Just by Bashkocha Pratis, this is also the relationship between Rebbe Eliezer and Rebbe Yoshua. That Rebbe Eliezer is Orot Tohu. In a certain way, he was even smarter than Rebbe Yoshua, but it was Tohu, it was Bet Shammai. And Rebbe Yoshua, in relation to him, is Kelim de Tikkun. And that's why after Rebbe Eliezer passed away in the lifetime of Rebbe Yoshua, so Rebbe Yoshua began to paskin according to decide the laws according to Rebbe Eliezer, because now already came the time that the lights of Tohu could enter into the vessels of Tikkun. Rabbi Akiva was a student of both of them. We said that both of them helped Rabban Yochanan get Yavne v'Chachamea. At that time, they're both, so to speak, pacifists against the rebellion within the walls of Jerusalem. But afterwards, clearly, Rabbi Eliezer was had a more stronger tendency to gevurah, to might, and to militance. So we can very likely say that the militance of Rabbi Akiva came more from Rabbi Eliezer, or Roteto. But Rabbi Yoshua is called the Kelim de Tikkun, and it's also called Uf, what the Rebbe always used to say, that all of the strength has to be expressed ba'ofen hamitkaber, in a language, in a way that is able to be well received by public opinion, by the whole world. So that ofen hamitkaber begins from Rabbi Yoshua. In a later generation, this returns, these two levels of militance versus pacifism, in a certain way, returns. And Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is also militant, like his Rabbi Akiva, and Rabbi Yehuda also, a student of Rabbi Akiva, he's the pacifist. So for this a great story of Jewish history: pacifism versus militance.
Okay, we're going to just take one more question from Los Angeles. It's a very, very seemingly simple question for a lot of people, though it's a very complicated question, and that is, how does one find a good friend? How does one find a good friend? Or how does one maintain a good friend?
We said that his gematria is Bakesh Shalom, search for peace. So first of all, you have to search for it, and the next word is V'rotfeo, you have to pursue it, means run after it. Meaning that it's much harder, the Bakesh Shalom, the searching for peace, is much harder than going away from evil, and much harder than even doing good. It's the third level. So it's not an easy thing. But as it says in another saying in Pirkei Avot, it says, "Aseh lecha rav uknei lecha chaver." Make for yourself a mentor, a rabbi, a rebbe, and even if you have to buy with money, with millions, billions, you have to invest in a friend. So it doesn't necessarily mean money, but it means that there has to be a tremendous investment of soul, kinei lecha chaver, in order to have a friend.
Okay, that's a perfect lead-in, because one of the perushim of kinei lecha chaver is buy a lot of books. No, really, this is a real commentary that a good book is like a best friend. So right in the back here, for the people who are here, we have all of the Rav's books.
There's another way you can get 3 books for free.
Oh, right. I have to remind everyone, anyone who can figure out, he has it. Wait. This is very good friends of mine from Denver that just spent time with us, and he says he has it.
So if he has it, he gets 3 books. But you want to come here and
come. This is one of the biggest moments in the history of Gali and I right here. Don't go away, folks.
7th and 8th, I also. It's first, third.
How did you do it? How did you? It's correct.
Yay! This is a landmark, a milestone. Unbelievable. Okay, you have to explain though.
Should have images.
Yeah, here, go on. Now come stand over here so people can see. Come stand over here. Over here, no, right here. Come, yeah? Is he in? Okay. Okay. Hold this.
Well, I basically found 2 sequences, like the triangle numbers and the square numbers, and found which numbers are in both lists. So, and there's a sequence to it. So you have like 1, and then 2, 8, 13, 47, 76, 274, 443, and it goes on forever.
But how does it work? What's the algorithm?
What?
What is the algorithm? How do you get one from the other?
I basically just made 2 lists and found the way that they match. Don't really having to figure out a formula to do it, but
So how did you?
I could write a program.
It's not as good enough. You have to have the formula. I don't understand. How did you get from 76 to 274? You tried every number.
What?
How did you get from 76 to 274?
I basically tried every
You
number
tried every.
with a...
Oh, that's not good enough.
Oh no.
No, the result is correct, but there's no rule. I want to know the rule. But he tried every single number.
I made a table of numbers.
He made a table. Right, he made a table of numbers. He tried every number. Beseder, so you still get one book free.
I would say, I don't want to overrule the Rav, but I think he deserves at least 2.
Okay, Beseder too.
Unbelievable. Wow. Thank you very much.
No, but still, tell me, you still haven't. You get 3 by you have 24 hours. I want to know the algorithm. How you know the answer?
Okay, there's still hope. There's still hope. Okay. Shana Tova, Ketiva v'Chatima Tova. Thank you everyone for coming, and we will see you in a new year.